talk about Kentucky and Tennessee, and we're going to have to move kind of quickly. I don't know why I combined the two into one program. We could have a whole program on each state. And so we're going to have to move quickly. And I wanted to say that I did write this program during the lockdown period of the pandemic. And so I was thinking about types of resources that people could do from home. So there's a lot in this talk today about online research, about calling places or maybe emailing them and trying to do some research long distance rather than going places in person, which we know there is just opening up now, basically in a lot of places. So, all right, with that said, let's go ahead and get started with Kentucky first. So we're going to talk about Kentucky research, Kentucky websites, and Kentucky repositories. So early Kentucky history in one slide. You can chuckle about that for a second. Basically, around the mid-1500s, the Spaniards were in Kentucky. And of course, prior to that, Native Americans were there. By the mid-1700s, they were having Caucasian settlers and explorers and traders coming into the area that is now Kentucky. The native tribes in the area included, but not exclusively, the Shawnee and the Cherokee. And then in 1776, it was organized as Kentucky County, Virginia. And so it's part of Virginia for a while. So if your people were there that early, you need to probably look in Virginia records. 1792, statehood for Kentucky. And then Kentucky early history in maps in a couple of slides. So this is showing you what it looked like in 1776 when it was part of Virginia. So you've got Virginia over to the right-hand side of the screen, which would be east of Kentucky. And you can see that all of the area that is nowadays Kentucky was part of Kentucky County, Virginia. 1880, they divided it into 3 counties, Fayette, Lincoln, and Jefferson, and those are roughly the boundaries of those counties. Those are still Virginia counties in 1780. In 1792, this is unfortunately not an easy map to read, but there are more counties. Looks like about 8 or 10 counties that they had by the time of statehood. All right. Now, there have been a number of research guides that have been written about how to do research in Kentucky. You can see that the most recent one that I have listed there was written in 2012. This is not terribly recent. It's almost 10 years ago by now, but that's the most modern one. So I would say look at that one first. It was put out by the National Genealogical Society. So, and it is a short overview of how to do research in Kentucky. The other 2 books are older, but I think they have some good bibliographies in them of resources. They will not be talking, as you can see by the dates, they're not going to be talking about online resources and any, entrance fees or phone numbers. Those kinds of things are going to be sadly outdated, but they may still be useful for your research to kind of get an overview of Kentucky and Kentucky records. This is mentioned in your handout, but we do have on our website, and I have the links in the handout, a snapshot of our materials on Kentucky. And this would be a select list of maybe the more important resources about Kentucky that we have here at the Genealogy Center. Now, if you were going to come here, this would be useful to you to get the call numbers. Now, those of you who are at a distance, who are not going to be able to visit, you might still want to look at this list and get the titles. The call numbers aren't going to do you any good, but the titles, you could look up those titles in WorldCat or in your local library catalog to see if you can find a copy of these books at a location, a library nearer to you. Okay, so let's move on quickly here to Kentucky Vital Records. Now, these are a bit of a mess. And apologies to anyone that's from Kentucky that might be offended by that, but they kind of were starting and stopping and doing one thing and then doing another thing. So it gets kind of confusing to talk about what's going on with Kentucky vital records. So the state or the county kept birth and death records starting in 1851. So that's pretty early. And they kept them through 1862 for some areas of Kentucky. Then they stopped. Then they started again in 1874 and then through 1878 for some areas of Kentucky, and then they stopped. So if you have somebody who was born or died in those time periods, those records would be at the county, one of the county offices, maybe the Vital Records Office, or the Kentucky State Archives. And most of them, I think, that exist are online at FamilySearch and Ancestry. Then there's a big gap when they did not keep them again, and they started them up again in 1911. And those are kept now, currently as well. So 1911 to the present. Sporadic compliance in those early years, I would say probably the 1920s and 30s, there were still some people that were slipping through the cracks. People weren't coming down to the courthouse to register births and deaths. Those records from that time period, 1911 to the present, are kept at the State Vital Office of Vital Statistics or at the county, either place. Now, there were some cities that kind of did their own thing. And of course, we're glad that they did because they kept records earlier. So Covington, Lexington, Louisville, and Newport. And you can see the dates are a little bit different for each one. Those have all been put online as well. So those are at Ancestry and FamilySearch, I believe, or you can get them in person at the Kentucky State Archives. And then the cities also did the same thing with the deaths. You can see that Louisville started quite early with the deaths, 1866, and the others kind of came in a little bit later. Now, like I said, online, a lot of the records that I just talked about are online. So online at FamilySearch, online at Ancestry. With the exception of the 1911 to 2000, 1911 to present births. So births are not online anywhere from 1911 to the present. There's a birth index that's out there. So if you find someone in the index, then you could order the record, but the births themselves are not online. The death certificates are online at Ancestry from 1911 to 1965. After that, you would have to order them. The marriages are also a bit of a problem as far as compliance being different for different places and so forth. So again, some counties would have kept a marriage record since the date of county formation. And in some of those cases, that would be quite early, the 1700s. Other counties did not keep their marriage records unless it was mandated. So remember when the births and deaths were mandated, the middle of the 1850s, the middle of the 1870s, and then 1911 to the present. Well, some counties only kept their marriage records during that time period as well. So it's really county by county that you have to kind of delve into this situation and try to figure out what records are available for the county that you are interested in. There are online marriage records for Kentucky at Ancestry and FamilySearch. There's marriage indexes and some marriage records. I have found those to be incomplete. So when you're doing Kentucky research, I would say that never go by what's online. Never say to yourself, oh, I didn't find the marriage online, so it must not exist. That is probably not true. You would want to contact the county clerk and also the state archives to get an idea of whether marriage records were kept for the time period that you need for a particular county and where you can access those marriage records, because they're not all online. The State Vital Statistics Office does have marriage records from 1958 to the present. So that would be a way that you can get a hold of those. And then before 1958, you'll have to contact the county clerk or the Kentucky State Archives. Adoptions. So even though most of the states around Kentucky have opened their adoption records to adoptees in some format or another, Kentucky has not done so. So it is considered a closed adoption state. There may be exceptions and ways to get some information. I believe probably non-identifying information is available. That would be a little dossier on the birth mother and birth father, kind of giving some statistics about them, like they were 24 years old, they were from Tennessee, they were a high school graduate, that kind of thing. So you can get that information, but the way you want to go to try to get a hold of any information is the Kentucky Cabinet of Health and Human Services. And this is on your handout, so you don't need to worry about this link here. And some of their searching may be fee-based, so it may not be a free search. Other states might do a free search, but Kentucky is not one of those states either. And this is what you get when you go into that link that I just showed you. There is a lot of information about Kentucky's adoption search services, so you want to read through that if you're looking for a Kentucky adoption. Kentucky Census and Census substitutes. So the federal census, as most of us know, was taken since 1790. Now, Kentucky, of course, didn't exist until 1796 as a state, but there's some census losses. So the 1800 census does not survive. The 1790 census does not survive for Virginia. 1810 through 1940 do survive, other than the 1890 census, which was burned for most of the United States. 1890 special census enumerating Union veterans. Kentucky's copy of that is half intact. Mortality schedules for 1850 are only available for Pendleton through Whitley counties, alphabetically. So other counties did not, but 1860 through 1880 mortality schedules do survive. So there have been losses. Now, what do you do if you're trying to find somebody in one of those censuses that was lost? Well, you can think about census substitutes. So there is a 1787 census of Virginia, which is based on tax lists, and that is online at Ancestry. And then there are a lot of Kentucky tax lists that have survived for those early years. 1800 would be another example. There are a lot of tax lists around the time period of 1800 for Kentucky. Those can be used as a substitute for the lost federal census records, in that you can find a particular person of a particular name in a particular place. It's not going to give you all the data that the census would give you, but it would link a person of that name to that location at that time. And those early tax lists are available at the state archives. They might be available locally in the different counties. We have a set of them here at the Genealogy Center on microfilm. And many have been indexed and abstract in print format. And we have a lot of those here at the Genealogy Center as well. And other libraries probably have these also. So you can try searching WorldCat for tax lists for different counties in Kentucky that you are researching. There have been a number of courthouse disasters in Kentucky, and this is kept track of at the Kentucky Department for Libraries and Archives website. So their website is in your syllabus, but you can see that there. But just a word of caution about that: just because there happened to have been a courthouse disaster in your particular county of interest doesn't mean that you should just throw up your hands and say, well, I can't find anything, I'm not even going to try. You should definitely try. See what FamilySearch has, see what books have been published, see what federal records have survived, see what state records have survived. So if the courthouse burned, then that means local records were destroyed. But a lot of records are duplicated in the state capitol. A lot of records are duplicated in Washington. So, all hope is not lost when there's been a courthouse fire. So just keep that in mind. Okay, what are some of the major research repositories in Kentucky? So the big one that you probably want to know about, and you probably already do know about, is the Kentucky State Library and Archives. This is located in Frankfort, Kentucky, which is centrally located near the highway that goes to Florida. That's how I remember it, because as a kid, we would go through Kentucky, of course, to drive to Florida from Indiana. But anyways, that's an aside. What do they have at the Kentucky State Library and Archives? Well, they have records from state and local agencies. So they are keeping the state agency records for the state of Kentucky, but they also have microfilm of county records, such as court records, land records, and probate records for many counties. And they have some state vital records there. It's a good place to visit if you have a number of counties in Kentucky that you are researching. You could go perhaps just to the Kentucky State Library and Archives and do research on a number of those different counties using the county records that they have. Great resource for that. They do answer questions online and allow you to order some records online. And they will charge you a small fee for that. So you want to look for that on their website. On their website, they have a library catalog so you can see what they have. They have digital collections. Few of them seem to be genealogical in nature, and they have some finding aids. So this is what their website looks like. And when you get to the website, what you want to do is go to the tab that says researchers. And then there's a number of links there for different information that will be helpful to you. All right. Then there's the Kentucky Historical Society. This is also located in Frankfort. They have collection strengths of oral histories, books, digital collections. If you had something in those collections that they have that you want to look at, then you would want to visit them. There is an entrance fee to get in, and they will do some research by mail for a fee. On their website, they do have a library catalog, finding aids, and digital collections. So here's what their website looks like. And you would click on resources, and then you would see a number of items there, including catalogs and research tools and the Martin Schmidt Research Library. I thought I would just show you here that they do have what seems to be a fairly good digital collections page. So this would be materials that you can view online from home, including oral histories and audio-visual materials, graphic materials, manuscripts, printed materials, maps, and atlases, and more. Okay, then there's the Filson Historical Society, which is located in Louisville. And their collection strengths, this is a private Kentucky Historical Society, it's a membership society. They have manuscripts, photographs, maps, oral histories, books, digital collections. They have an especially good Louisville collection. Should you visit there? Maybe. You want to check the catalog for items of interest. There will be an entrance fee if you are not a member. They will do some mail research for a fee at a distance. And they have a website that has a library catalog, some finding aids, some digital collections, and online exhibits. So at the Filson Society's webpage, you want to go to collections, there where the blue arrow is. And they also have some digital collections. These would also be items that you can look at from home. Looks like they have 44, including one on steamboating in the Ohio River Valley and an architectural collection. So those are just a couple. Then there is if you're going to Louisville anyways, you might think about going to the National Society of the Sons of the American Revolution Library. This is located in Louisville. Their collection strengths include that they have family histories, Revolutionary War materials, membership files for the SAR, books on the 13 colonies. They have a George Rogers Clark collection and a Marquis de Lafayette collection. Again, Do you need to visit? I don't know. You should check their catalog for items of interest. There would be an admission fee to get in, unless you're a member of the SAR. Mail research, yes, they will do some research for you by mail for a fee. They do have a website with a library catalog and finding aids. Here's their website. You can see they have a couple tabs up there, one for genealogy, one for library. And so you'd want to check both of those out. Okay. Now, there's another great website that some people don't know about, and it is involving state land records in Kentucky. So when I talk about state land records, I mean a person who is purchasing land that is owned by the state. They would have had to have gone to the Kentucky Land Office. So, and these records, many of them have been digitized, but almost all of them have been indexed, and the indexes are online. So here's where you would find these indexes. Now, unfortunately, well, I find this unfortunate. They don't have an index that covers all of the land records all in one main index. They have all these little individual indexes. So you have to search these indexes one by one, looking for the family that you're looking for. So there's like a Revolutionary War warrants, Tennessee River military patents, Virginia and Old Kentucky patents, etc. So you have to search all these indexes individually, but you will be rewarded. If your ancestors were early Kentucky settlers, then they almost certainly bought their land from the state at some point or another. And so you can find, and like I said, some of these are then scanned, the patents are scanned and linked, and they're online on this website. So basically, you will be able to figure out from that search whether it is online or not. Otherwise, you will be given a link and some information about how to send a request to the land office to get copies of those records. I've done that before, and it's not a very large fee. I think it's just a small copy fee, and they replied to my request very punctually. Now, again, this is when people are purchasing land from the state of Kentucky. This would be the first land transfer. Once that land has been purchased by an individual, then the subsequent land transfers of that particular piece of property will be in the county land records at the county courthouse, wherever that land was located. So keep that in mind as well. Okay, Kentucky newspapers. So almost all of the states nowadays have a digital newspaper program. So Kentucky is no exception. This is at the University of Kentucky Library's website, and it's called the Kentucky Digital Newspaper Program. And so they do have online papers for different counties and towns in Kentucky. And you want to check that out if you're researching Kentucky. Now, if the newspaper that you want to look at has not been digitized, then you may need to get it on microfilm. And so the University of Kentucky is also one of the major locations to find microfilm Kentucky newspapers. So they have this arranged by county, so you can go ahead and look through what they have, and you can look at titles and dates, and then write down what you find, because these newspaper microfilms of the newspapers are available on interlibrary loan. So you can go to your local library with the information that you got from this website, with the title and the date, and request that your local library borrow this microfilm for you. You can also visit the University of Kentucky in Lexington and view the newspapers yourself on microfilm. As I promised, we had to move quickly, so we're going to move on to Tennessee now. So we just hit the highlights of Kentucky. And we're moving on to Tennessee, Tennessee research, repositories, and websites. Okay, Tennessee history in one slide. We have a Spanish explorer, Hernando de Soto, was in Tennessee around 1540. In 1776, the land in Tennessee became part of the state of North Carolina, while at the same time they were owned by the Native American tribes, of course. In 1796, we had statehood. And here we have some maps. This is showing you in 1783 that the areas that are open to settlers are basically this East Tennessee way over here on the right-hand side of the screen, and this middle part here, Cumberland settlements. The rest of this is still being controlled by the native tribes. By 1790, this would still be when Tennessee was part of North Carolina. You can see that there are about 5 or 6 counties: Davidson, Sumner, Hawkins, Greene, Sullivan, and Washington. Okay, there have been a couple of how-to guides that have been written. Again, the most recent one, 2017, was done for the National Genealogical Society, and that's The Research in Tennessee by Charles Sherrill. George Schweitzer, a good book. He was a very good genealogical researcher, and so I have used his book. So you just have to remember that he's not going to be talking about websites, and he's not going to have up-to-date information in there because it was written in 1993. But I think they both are still useful books to look at. We also have, again, the Genealogy Center State Snapshot for Tennessee Resources. These would be a selective list of books that we have on Tennessee. So major books, major collections. And you can take the titles off of this list and look for them in your own library or in WorldCat for a library near you. Okay, vital records in Tennessee. Now, this is much more straightforward than Kentucky, thankfully. So, birth records. When did Tennessee start keeping birth records? Well, they didn't start keeping them until quite recently. About 1908 was when it was mandated. Not everyone went to the courthouse and reported their births at this time. So, compliance was spotty in those early years. Now, Tennessee has some laws that are protecting people's privacy. And so they have restricted access to original birth records for 100 years. So unless it's your own birth record or a close family member, you're not going to be able to look at it per se, the original. Now, you can send in to the State Vital Records Office for an abstract of a birth record and for a small fee. So the abstract may be good enough for you. So you'd want to look at their website to see how that would, if that would help you. The birth records over 100 years old are available for research at the Tennessee State Archives. And again, some of the major cities in Tennessee did keep their own birth records as well, and they kept them earlier than the state did. So we've got Chattanooga, Knoxville, Nashville, and Memphis. And you can get those records from those city Vital Records Office or from the Tennessee State Archives or online. So the city birth records are online, and some delayed birth records from 1869 to 1908 are on 1909 are on Ancestry.com. These may not be inclusive. I am not positive about, I've not gone through and checked whether every county in Tennessee is participating in these online records, so I can't say for sure. I just know that sometimes when I do search for people who I know should be in Tennessee records online, I don't always find them, and so I don't know if there are more records at the county level that just didn't get digitized and put online. So that is something to kind of keep in mind, that I'm not positive that every record, has been digitized for these years for every county for every year. Okay, civil death records. So again, does not start until 1908. Again, compliance was spotty around that beginning time frame. People were not going to the courthouse and reporting all of the deaths. Again, by Tennessee law, there is restricted access to the originals for 50 years in this case, unless it's someone who is named on the certificate and close family members. And you'd have to look up the rules to see who is a close family member. Now, you can get an abstract of the death record, and that might be enough for you. And those would be available from the State Vital Records Office for a small fee. The death records that are over 50 years old can be accessed at the Tennessee State Archives, and they're also, some of them are online. The cities again, so some of the cities were keeping the death records earlier, and you can see Memphis is way earlier, 1848. So you want to contact the city for those early ones or the Tennessee State Archives, and I think most of those have been put online. So the city death records from 1872 to 1923 are online. The deaths from 1914 to 1966 are on FamilySearch, and 1908 to 1958 are on Ancestry. And again, I cannot guarantee you that this is every county every year online. It may be just selected counties. So if you don't find what you're looking for online, I would send into the county or the state to see if they can find the record. Okay, civil marriage records. Again, a lot more orderly than Kentucky. So these were kept from the formation of the county to the present day. Tennessee State Archives has those that are older than 50 years. And the counties have the more recent marriage records as well as the older ones. Online, both Ancestry and FamilySearch have collections that say that they are Tennessee state marriages from 1780 to 2002. Again, I'm not positive that this is every county in the state. So you'd want to be double checking that. This is the Tennessee Department of Health where you would be filing to get those abstracts of the birth and death records if you were wanting to get those. This is their website. Okay, adoption. So in Tennessee, the adoptions are open with few exceptions. So you can get some, if you were adopted, you can get some kind of adoption information. You can see, and this link is in your it's in your handout. So the Tennessee Department of Child Services website. And when you open it up, this is what it looks like. And it has a lot of information about how to request the adoption records. FAQs, who's eligible, and so forth and so on. So they have a nice website there that gives you a lot of information, as opposed to Kentucky, which you had to really search for that, what you could find. Okay, Native Americans in Tennessee. Now, as I said before, I'm sure there were other tribes there, but the two major tribes that were in Tennessee, especially when the Caucasian settlers started moving in, were the Cherokee and the Chickasaw. Many moved west, some on their own in the early 1800s, or were forced west on the Trail of Tears starting around 1835. And then others did stay behind. They managed to hide or merge into the general population. There will be records, like official Native American records through the Bureau of Indian Affairs for the ones that were actually counted. So those would not be the ones that hid. So the Cherokees, there are what is called the Old Settlers records. Those are the people that left Tennessee around 1817, somewhat voluntarily. They were not forced out. And they were enumerated on the Baker's Cherokee Immigration Rolls, 1817 to 1835. Then there was the Eastern Band of Cherokee. These are the folks that were forced west for the most part, and they're enumerated on the Eastern Cherokee census rolls that are on both FamilySearch and Ancestry, and also in the Guion Miller roll and the Dawes rolls, which are online at Fold 3. So there's a lot of Cherokee information that has been put online for those that were counted and registered as Cherokees in some of these different rolls that were taken. Chickasaw, on the other hand, not so much of this has been digitized and put online. So a lot of Chickasaw records are available at the National Archives. This would be the National Archives in Atlanta. And it's in record group 75. There's a census of 1839. There's some correspondence with the Chickasaw Indian agent, their day books and miscellaneous accounts, land locations, sales and deeds. But the Chickasaw that were officially counted were enumerated in the Dawes rolls, and this is also on Fold 3. Okay, census and census substitutes for Tennessee. And we're talking about the federal census. Now, Tennessee has had some census losses as well. So basically, starting in 1830, going up to 1940, those censuses survive other than the 1890 census. So 1800 did not survive. 1810 did not survive except for parts of 2 counties, Rutherford and Granger. 1820 census for the eastern part of Tennessee did not survive. The middle and western part did. So again, you're going to be having to look at census substitutes for the time periods where there were census losses. There is a book. This is a print book. As far as I know, it's not online. It's called Reconstructed 1810 Census of Tennessee by Charles Sherrill. There's also a Tennessee enumeration of male voters, which took place in 1891. This is an effective substitute for the 1890 census, and that has been put online at Ancestry. You can also use tax lists and other types of lists to try to locate people in a specific location at a specific time. That would somewhat be a substitute for the census. Newspapers in Tennessee. To get newspapers on microfilm, the place to go is the Tennessee State Library and Archives, and that's in Nashville. They have microfilmed most of the known newspapers across the state. They allow interlibrary loan of those microfilms to other Tennessee libraries. So if you're in Tennessee, you're in luck. You could go to your local library and request those microfilm. If you're outside of Tennessee, you're going to have to request a search by the Tennessee State Archives for a particular newspaper for you. And they will do that for a fee, but they're not going to loan the microfilm out to you. And here's their website where they give information about that. They give a nice index of showing which microfilms that they do have for which places and what years and so forth. And then right over on the right-hand side of the screen there, by the arrow, is ordering newspaper searches. So this is where you would go if you need them to do a search in a newspaper for you. There are newspapers online for Tennessee. There's always Chronicling America, which of course is based at the Library of Congress website, and it covers the whole United States and has some digitized newspapers for all 50 states. These would be pre-1923. There's also the Tennessee Newspaper Project, which is, I believe, a part of Chronicling America, but they have their own website that you can go to as well. These are both in your handout. Here is what the Library of Congress Chronicling America site looks like. And you can see they say that they have digitized papers from 1777 to 1963 from all over the US. This is the Tennessee Newspaper Project. This is at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville Library is the one that is putting this on. And so you can search or browse the database and find out which newspapers that they have digitized. Major repositories in Tennessee. So the biggie, again, would be the State Library and Archives. And this is a wonderful place. I've been here to that archives in Nashville a number of times, and it is a wonderful place. You could spend days there. Their collection strengths, they do have family histories. They have county records on microfilm, so from the different counties. They have state agency records. They have newspapers on microfilm. We just talked about that. They have the Tennessee Historical Society manuscript collections in their collection, and much more. This is a one-stop shop for Tennessee research. So if you have a number of Tennessee relatives and you want to research from different counties and you want to go just one place, I would say go to Nashville, see if they have what you need there. They will do some research for you by mail if you're unable to visit. They have a wonderful website. Included on there, among other things, is a library catalog, finding aids, and much more. So when you get to their website, this is what it's going to look like, and you're going to go to the History and Genealogy tab there where the red arrow is located. You can also see, though, that they are highlighting some of their online resources. So they do have some online resources, including looks like some online maps and more. So you want to check that out. When you go to the History and Genealogy tab, you can see that, again, you can see a better idea of what they've got. They have the Tennessee Confederate pension applications. They also have different categories over there on the right, African American research, art, maps, and photography, biographical materials, county materials, court records, and so on. So lots of good stuff at this website. And the National Archives Atlanta branch, which I mentioned earlier. So this Atlanta branch of the National Archives is going to have records, federal records for states in the Southeast, including Tennessee and Kentucky, as well as Georgia and some others. So they would have federal records, including naturalizations, federal court records, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, which we just talked about, and much more. So should you visit there? Yes, if you are seeking federal records. They will send you some records by mail, so you may not have to visit in person. You may be able to conduct your business with them by mail. On their website, they have finding aids and catalogs, so you need to look at those just to see what types of records they have and whether those are going to be useful to you in your research. So their website looks like this, National Archives in Atlanta, and then down at the very bottom there where it says research our records, that's where you want to go to start finding out what they have for the different states and the different record types and years. And then there will be information on their site about how you can order those. There's also an email address and various things, other ways to get a hold of them. Now, many of the counties in Tennessee have their own archives, and I have visited the Sumner County Archives and the Robertson County Archives, and those were very helpful to me. I know somebody else that contacted an archives, and I don't remember which one it was. Might have been Granger, but somewhere over in the eastern part of Tennessee, and he got exactly the record that he wanted by mail in a timely fashion, and it answered his longstanding brick wall. So on this clickable map, which you will find at the Tennessee State Archives website, every county that is either shaded in blue or green has an archives of some sort. So the ones that are white, they do not have an archives, but you can see majority of the counties do have an archives, and they have a lot of good materials and they have a lot of good staff to help you. Okay, now I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Family Search for a few minutes, especially since we're talking about how I wrote this talk during the lockdown period. So when we were all stuck in our homes, Family Search was a real help to many of us. And so I hope most of you already know this, but for some of you that may not, there are a lot of materials on Family Search that you can use from home. So I'm going to suggest that you go to the catalog. So on Family Search, so it's familysearch.org. This is the website of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, their genealogy arm. And they, on their website, they have, you can search records, images, you can search family trees, genealogies, catalog, books, or wiki. You want to go here to where it says catalog. And this is going to get you into the catalog of the Family History Library in Salt Lake City. But what you need to know is in the past few years, they have spent many, many, many hours and lots of money digitizing everything in their library in Salt Lake City that they can legally digitize. So if they were able to get the permission from the record owner, they digitized those materials. And they have been rapidly putting them up online onto their website. And so this Family Search catalog search that I'm showing you right now is getting into the catalog of the Family History Library in Salt Lake City. And we're going to be looking at their holdings, but we're also going to be checking to see if they've been digitized. So the way that you want to search this catalog is you want to search it by place. And so the little box that you may or may not be able to see there in the middle of the screen is where you enter the place that you are interested in. Now, I suggest you put in the county and the state that you are looking for. You can also do town or village or township and state. Or, you know, if you're looking at foreign countries, you can put in, you know, city and foreign country also. But since we're talking about Kentucky and Tennessee, we're going to do we're going to put in my favorite county, which is Sumner. And when you start typing in the name of the locality, they will start suggesting places that have that locality. So there's a Sumner in Kansas, a Sumner in Tennessee, or Mississippi, but I want the one here in Tennessee. So I will click on that. And I will say search. And what I will get is this list, which is arranged by subject heading or topic of materials, of subject headings in the Family History Library collection in Salt Lake City. So you can see they've got Bible records, 3 items, biographies, 2 items. This is all about Sumner County, Tennessee. Cemeteries, 8 items, and so forth. And what I would suggest you do is actually click into each one of these and see what they are. Now, I'm going to pick court records just because I know these court records are online. So there's 8 items. And so when I click on that, it opens up and it tells me what they are. So there's county court minutes, there's enrolling dockets, minute books, minutes of the Superior Court, and so forth. All of these items, except for the very last one, have an author of a government entity. So these are most likely all microfilms. I don't know that for sure, but I think that they are. This last one that has an author, Carol Wells, that wrote a book. I think this is a book, and it's probably called Sumner County, Tennessee Court Minutes, 1787 to 1805. Now, this may have been digitized and put online, but it may not have been. But these others, since I'm suspecting that they're microfilm, I think they're probably all online. But I will click on this one here that says Minute Books 1810 to 1964 for Tennessee Circuit Court. And then I get into the item record, and it gives me more information. It tells me it's microfilm, 22 microfilm. It's from the Tennessee State Library and Archives originally, and it tells me the years down here. The magic place to look is right over here under format. And when it says camera, this means that this is online. So I can click on this camera and magically view the microfilm. So this is telling me that it's film 8150708, and there are 1,211 images from that microfilm. And I can go ahead and skip around by putting a different number here. If I wanted to go to 1211, I could just put in 1211 here. I could go put in 100 to see image 100, and that would allow me to skip around on the microfilm. I can also just kind of click through. I'm seeing this thumbnail, these thumbnails right here, so I can click through any one of these that I want to look at. If I decide I want to look at this one, I just click on this one. If I want to look at this one, I click over here. So this will allow me to view the microfilm page by page by page of these minutes. And I could do this from home at night. And there's going to be a lot of detail in here about Sumner County people and their different court proceedings that involved the local people. And this was very early. I think it said 1810 was the earliest one in this series. So this will give me a lot of color on my ancestors that lived in Sumner County. Remember, I only looked at this one heading here. So there's all these other headings here. So you want to check all of these out if you're researching Sumner County, Tennessee, or whatever locality it is that you are researching, to check out to see what they have and see what's been microfilmed. Now, not everything's going to be microfilmed. Now here I have just listed to you again the steps that I went through, and this is also in your handout. But I basically put in the county and the state in the search box. I retrieved a list of topics. I selected a topic of interest. I viewed a list of titles. I selected a title of interest, and I went down to the format to see whether it was online. If there was a camera icon, it is online. There may be restrictions. Sometimes you click on the camera and it'll come up back and tell you that this is restricted to certain libraries or restricted only to Salt Lake City and so forth. If that happens to you, FamilySearch has recently instituted a lookup request service. So if you find out that you've gone through all that and you found something in their catalog that you want to see, a microfilm that's restricted or a book that is not online, you can request a lookup from FamilySearch. This link is in your handout, but here is the link. If you just Google FamilySearch lookup service, you will find this website. This is what it looks like. And you can say, see family history, library record lookup service. And it goes through what you need to do. And this is a free service as of right now. I know several people that have done it who have gotten a response, I believe within a week or so, something around there. It's not like instantaneous the next day or anything like that, but it is reasonably soon. The other thing on FamilySearch that you can look at is their wiki. And so again, this was under search at FamilySearch, and then it was under wiki. And so a wiki is basically an online tutorial or how to do research in different topics. And they have wikis for all the states. They have wikis for different countries. And they've just put together all kinds of information about how to do research about that topic or that locality. So we're looking at the Tennessee wiki, but there is definitely one from Kentucky as well. And this again is on the FamilySearch.org website. And two places on the wiki that you want to look at, but there's actually so much material here. But over here on the side, Tennessee wiki topics, you can go into different subtopics like land and property, military records, adoption, cemeteries, and so forth. There's more down below that didn't get captured onto the screen. And then this Tennessee online genealogy records right here, the blue. This leads you to another page that looks like this, which has all these links for you. And it kind of goes into some of the things I was talking about earlier. You want a birth record, you want delayed birth records, you want, different marriages, so forth and so on. And it tells you where they might be. And some of them, of course, are at paid databases, and they have the $sign there. Some of them are free websites. So a lot of good information gathered for you in one place here about Tennessee research. So that is the end of my short tour of FamilySearch and the end of my presentation. So I hope that even though we had to go fast and we had to skim over some topics, I hope you all learned something.